I just got through watching the theatrical version of Dune. Due to the design of Amazon Prime, I had to switch to YouTube to watch the final credits with the actor bows. But that's modern technology for you when they don't respect the filmmakers who make these things. Dune came out in the theater 35 years ago, and I've resisted seeing it until a bored Sunday brought it to my attention. Overall, I enjoyed it. You can tell the director and production staff worked hard to make this a beautiful movie with loving design elements throughout. The actors, working from mostly closed sets, do the best with their material. And there's some surprises, such as seeing Patrick Stewart as the action hero a few years before Star Trek The Next Generation. Brad Dourif ends up playing nearly the same character in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Talk about typecasting. And Kyle MacLachlan appears overwhelmed by his role as the movie starts, but you see the actor and character growing throughout until you believe in him and his journey. I wonder if this was deliberate, but it's a pleasing transition. In reviewing the movie, I must mention the book. I first saw a massive paperback of Dune in the late 70s. It was at a friend's house, and we were staying up late waiting for a new show she liked called Saturday Night Live. I didn't know what all the fuss was, as it was past my childhood bedtime. But as we waited, I read a few pages of Dune until falling asleep. That was the end of my association with Frank Herbert's Dune until 2019. The movie opens with an extremely dry exposition, like the one you're hearing now. While a necessary setup, you can imagine the movie audience settling into their seats at the tedium. As one review noted at the time, going to movies should be escapist fantasy, and this was akin to prepping for a final exam. We're introduced to the royal family, who are sketched out in a, sketchy manner. Despite 10,000 years of history, people are still named Paul, which surprises me. The costuming and changes in religion are an excellent attempt to consider what human history would look like after another 8,000 years of galactic exploration. Our global history at present is not longer than that span already, so we should consider that in 8,000 years there are many more changes than one would find in a show like Star Trek, which is only set hundreds of years in the future. The goal here was to show societal changes and a return to family houses feuding with each other. Despite being an American production, the movie has a very British, European tone to it, with an emperor and official state religions. I found it an effective fantasy, but rather than an entire galaxy, the movie settles on 3 planets, and that's enough. In movies, fiction is very hard to pull off. You want the audience to pretend something is real, to believe in the lie you are being shown and told on screen. The actors and production crew are honest in this, and you can feel their earnestness shine through an otherwise dull special effects budget. They want to believe in the film, and that was enough for me as an audience member. When the end credits come up, or try to come up before Amazon Prime attempts to whisk you off to an unrelated comedy, you are left with the feeling that everyone wanted to present you with a fresh and new galactic setting that did not feel like Star Wars or Star Trek. Although it had bits of cheesiness throughout, one never got the feeling of watching a space opera like Flash Gordon, with everyone winking at the audience at the silliness of it all. The seriousness of Dune was its chief highlight, and also its downfall, as the audience did not tell their friends it was worth their time to watch. The problem is that all the battles are fought over a drug no one in their right mind would want to inhale. We are introduced to the daylight side of Dune as the royal family drops in on a shuttle to a mining vessel sitting on the sands of Arrakis. The pilot blithely tells the passengers that the outside temperature is like that of Venus, in the hundreds of degrees, which would be like an oven. Human life could not possibly walk around the daytime surface of this planet, a planet without water. They do go to the trouble of explaining the environmental suits which retain water while letting the actors keep their heads and faces clear for the cameras. But they don't explain how, when the shields are down, people can just walk around the desert as they please, day or night. This comes up repeatedly in later scenes of the film, right down to the final battle. All of this could have been avoided by simply not having a scene where the audience is told that the desert is hundreds of degrees too hot for human life. By the way, in the future, all redheads are evil. Write your own joke there. Sting was brought in as the celebrity attraction for the movie, but one wonders as to his purpose, or the purpose of the scene of him carrying a cage with a restrained hairless cat and bird. You can see how his battle with Paul at the end inspired movies like The Chronicles of Riddick. I could also see elements of the various races, such as the people with giant eyebrows, inspiring the Centauri of Babylon 5. Why that show's universe had to include psychics probably depends more on Dune than Star Trek's telepaths. Dune did not exist in a vacuum. Its influence is felt today. Sean Young's character, Chani, embodies the typical way male writers approach female heroes in a heroic fantasy. She's just there because, as Paul exalts, she's beautiful. She's given no choice in her romance with him. They just get naked real fast after he proves himself. Apparently, as a couple, they never have arguments about who takes out the garbage. They're as one through the movie, which speeds the plot along, but I long for something between them that even remotely resembled a real relationship. To ensure loyalty to the House of Harkonnen, heart plugs are installed in a person's chest. When their usefulness is ended, the heart plug can be removed, and some authority figure, such as the Baron, can then drink the blood. This doesn't seem very sanitary, or a good way to prolong heart health, even if no one pulls your plug. Must have made more sense in the novel. As in George Lucas's prequels, we are treated to an assassin drone. This one is mounted with a camera-directed needle. Like a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the Jurassic Park movie, we are told if you don't move, the needle can't see you. One of these threatens Paul and succeeds in killing his military aide Duncan. I could probably do a whole review just on these drone needles. It's a stupid idea. Why not just plant a bomb to get one of these annoying Atreides royal figures? Or put the bomb in the flying needle drone. Paul thinks that if he doesn't move, he's safe. Then he thinks, who is controlling this? We are then shown what is clearly implied to be the internal camera view of the drone, the view of someone controlling it by live remote control. The problem is that this thing zeroes in on Paul's eye. Why can't the guy aiming this thing get him now? Linda Hunt plays Shad-Out Mapes. Like Lucasfilm, Herbert puts most of his effort into goofy names. Still, if someone can be named Duncan Idaho, I guess this is okay. She is introduced as this dwarven native of Arrakis, and then she is saved by Paul from the drone needle. She dies shortly thereafter, leaving the viewer to wonder at her importance in the novel. A lot of Dune is like this, and it's frustrating as a viewer. It's not our fault if you save details of characters for the novel, sort of like Disney's Star Wars telling us that we need to purchase novels to figure out what happened. Speaking of technology, there is great importance placed on a sort of blaster that works by a necklace and a hand gauntlet. Speaking a particular phrase generates a powerful sonic blast. This is never explained to the audience as something other than the obvious result of 10,000 years of weapons development. I was bothered by how the plot placed such importance on naming Paul as Uzal Muad'Dib. He's told in a room full of people that Uzal is his secret name, and Muad'Dib will be his regular tribal name. So far, so good. Then a few minutes later, Thousands of troops meet in the Great Hall. This must have had quite a wait to get in and out of that hallway. And Paul tells them that he is Uzul Muad'Dib. I thought you weren't supposed to say the secret name. The audience gets a few hints that the sandworms are guardians of the spice that everyone seeks. But when Paul has his big revelation that there is a connection between the two, we're still not told if spice is a waste product of the worms. Is part of their parties when they decay something they spit out, or so on. You'd think the first biological survey of Arrakis would have figured this basic fact out, considering the value of this item. This becomes important when the Emperor shows up with a fleet for the express purpose to genocide all life on Arrakis. If spice is a natural byproduct made by the worms, killing all sandworms will kill off the supply of spice. Human civilization covers the known universe. Does it make any sense that a galactic space fleet's idea of planetary genocide involves 100 guys running around firing space blasters at one rock fortress? I know, budget limitations show the same group of extras marching around as Freeman, heroes, and bad guys. But the giant space conflict had all the scale of the space shuttle fight in Moonraker between American soldiers and Draco's space henchmen. Plus, if you saw the enemy riding to battle on giant space worms, why would you keep fighting? Maybe they didn't want their heart plugs yanked out. The little girl playing Alia Atreides had her work cut out for her. They replaced her voice with a creepy exorcist voice of the adult nun who replaced her mind in utero before she was born. She had the big scene in the movie where she yanked out the Baron's heart plugs, sending him tumbling into the waiting mouth of a sandworm. I found the whole thing gross. If she could kill with the power of her mind, why the need to reach out and touch this guy at all? There's also the horrifying assumption of what this sister was to Paul. Her mother cheerfully allowed the little girl growing inside her to be destroyed. The girl and woman she would become was eradicated so that an old nun on the other side of the galaxy could take her place with her memories and ageless agenda. That little girl was murdered by her mother, her mind replaced with someone else's. Yet this movie presented this usurpation of an innocent as a cool thing. Compared to this, scabby redheads flying around cackling ranked much lower on the scale of evil. This movie presented the whole of human civilization under one religion, and it was presented as something timeless and something that everyone had to live under forever, or else. Paul simply comes along and enforces peace via prophecy within that religion. I can't imagine anyone in the audience wanting to live in this universe or this society. Yes, it's a unique fantasy setting, but why go to all this trouble to make a future no one wants to be a part of? I still have no idea what the role of the Harkonnen was in this movie, other than to be a detestable, sadistic foil for Paul to play off of. Were they profiting off spice? Were they going to harvest it more efficiently than House Atreides? It didn't appear that way. Humans cover the known universe, yet they can't synthesize this spice? And with trillions of planets in our galaxy, there's only one with the right chemical combinations to make it? On Star Trek, dilithium crystals can't pop out of a matter replicator either. So to be fair, it's a MacGuffin that is needed to move the story along. But if I were part of the human population of this movie, I'd find a way to blow up that planet and end the domination of those exploiting the powers of the spice to control everyone else. Would you want to live under these people's psychic powers? I had the same question about the Jedi Council in Lucas's prequels. The biggest flaw in the movie, thanks to Wikipedia, is that Frank Herbert did not intend Paul to be a god who could create rain with his thoughts. He was, quote, a man playing God, close quote. But that was the book, not what ended up on screen. The movie ends with Paul showing off his powers to the Emperor, the head of the official nunnery church, and the House Harkonnen. This is supposed to impress those assembled and the audience as well. Paul was destined to be the super being who had mental powers, control of the spice, and creatures like the sandworms. But the problem is that this negates him as a hero. A hero has to have a chance of failure. There is nothing through the movie that indicates it is possible for Paul to fail. It's a roller coaster ride showing off the culture of the future. But he is destined to win, and so is the entire ride is rather pointless. James Kirk could miss punching a Klingon and lose. Luke Skywalker could miss that swing over the Death Star's drawbridge and fall to his death. But there's no sense of the hero being anything but fated to win in Dune. He even knows how to put on desert equipment perfectly, which is depicted as part of prophecy. Reading up on Herbert's series of Dune books, he was working towards a message of telling people not to put all of their trust in heroes. But that's not something we can go by. This is a standalone movie and must be judged on what was filmed. The message of this movie is that nothing anyone did mattered because Paul was destined to reach super being status. Sucks to be one of the people who died along the way. We are shown a mature galactic culture similar to Asimov's Foundation series. Technology is depicted as a settled constant accepted by everyone, with the story focused more on Shakespearean conflict between noble houses and the disenfranchised. Dune failed at the box office because it gave the audience no reason to care about this conflict or to care about the oddballs fighting over a dubious substance. But everyone involved in the production wanted this film to work, which comes across the silver screen. I also liked this movie because we got to see some meaty action sequences from Patrick Stewart and Kyle MacLachlan. It succeeded enough to make me enjoy the film and be able to recommend it to others, which is the point of this review. Enjoy!